This is the dialog editor. This is where you'll write your dialog system content unless you're importing from one of the many supported import formats. In the database section, you can enter information for your internal use. We'll come back to the other areas of the database section later. In the Actors section, you can define the actors that participate in conversations. If you set the display name, that's the name that appears in UIs. Otherwise, UIs will use the name field. You can also select one or more portrait sprites for your actors. And as with all of the other types of data in a dialog database, there's a list of fields that you can add custom fields to if you need to. In the Quests and Items section, you can define quests and items. Quests have their own tutorial, so we won't go over them here. In a dialog database, items are just data records. They don't have any built-in gameplay behavior. You can use them to store data about items, or ignore them if you don't need them for your project. Similarly, in the Locations section, locations are just data records that you can choose to use or ignore. You can define variables in the Variables section to remember things that happen during play. For example, this variable records if the player has found the launch codes. You can also get and set variable values in your own C# scripts using the Dialoglua class. I'll include a link down below in the description. The Conversations section is the heart of the dialog editor. It's where you'll write your conversation trees. To create a conversation, click plus. Click on Empty Canvas Space or select Menu Conversation Properties to edit the conversation's properties. Here you can set the conversation's title and the two primary participant actors. In a conversation between the player and an NPC, the conversation actor is typically the player actor and the conversant is typically the NPC. While these are the primary participants of the conversation, you can involve as many actors as you want in a conversation. A conversation tree is made of nodes called dialog entries. The dialog system uses the terms node and dialog entry fairly interchangeably. By default, conversations start at the start node. To create a new node, right-click on a node and select Create Child Node. The node has several fields. The node's actor is the actor that speaks this line of dialogue. The node's conversant is the actor being spoken to. Note that the node's actor and conversant are specific to the node. They don't necessarily match the conversation's primary actor and conversant. If the node's actor is a player actor, the menu text will appear in player response menus. The dialogue text is the line of dialogue spoken by the actor. The text that's shown on screen is called the subtitle. If the dialogue text field is blank, it will default to the menu text field's value and vice versa. You can use a number of markup tags in your text too. One of those markup tags is the emphasis tag. We'll go back to the database section later so you can see how to set the values of each emphasis tag. The Sequence field contains sequencer commands that will run when the conversation uses this dialog entry. If it's blank, it will run the dialog manager's default sequence. When an active conversation plays this dialog entry, it will stay on the dialog entry until the sequence is done. There's a separate video tutorial on sequences. If you're just getting started, you can leave the sequence field blank for now. This will tell it to use the dialog manager's default sequence, which by default delays for a duration based on the text length. The conditions and script fields are used for conditional logic. For example, if the player has done something that set a variable true, the conversation could branch differently based on the value of this variable. The next video covers conditions and scripts, so we won't go over them here. I'll create a few more nodes. Normally, you can link nodes by right-clicking on a node and selecting Make Link. However, if you want to link to another conversation, use the Links To drop-down and select Another Conversation. The menu drop-down is packed with options. You can auto-arrange nodes in different ways, turn on a ton of different visibility options, and even change the size of nodes if you want to make it easier to see long text at a glance. The Conversations section also has an outline mode. This is useful for reordering conversations, or bulk manipulating them, or if you simply prefer to work with your conversation trees in an outline format. The Templates section lets you add custom fields to database types such as actors, quests, and dialogue entries. For example, we can add an age field to actors. If you tick the Main checkbox, the field will appear in the Main Inspector section. Then select Menu, Apply Template to Assets to add the age field to existing actors. And here's the field in our actor. Okay, and finally getting back to the database section, the Emphasis Settings foldout is where you can set the appearance of the emphasis markup tags. The database section has several other useful features too, such as global search and replace, the ability to export to several different formats for different purposes, foldouts to get statistics on your database, and also check for any issues such as orphaned nodes that aren't linked from any other nodes. For the programmers out there, the dialogue editor has a lot of C# hooks that you can use to customize the editor. I'll also include a link to that documentation in the description below. As I mentioned earlier, the next video covers conditions and scripts, which are what make conversations interesting by allowing them to remember choices and branch differently based on those choices. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.